r/ask Reddit. Serious, what is an alarming fact that the next generation is going to have to deal with? Antibiotics resistance. Wasn't there something about honey that it had antibiotic properties that were so strong and overwhelming that it simply couldn't be beaten through evolution? Honey is very hygroscopic. It pulls the water out of microbes that try to invade it and they die from dehydration. This is its strongest antibiotic property and it is useless as a medicine since honey has to be diluted in water before it gets to the bloodstream. Otherwise, it will dehydrate the patient's cells. Honey is a good dry preservative, but not a medicine. To be fair, my generation is still trying to fix the massive damage caused by baby boomers, while many of them are still here voting to continue the damage, destruction and plunder. I figure my kids will have to deal with the fact that we were unable to fix it because the boomers still held too much power. With any luck, a new generation, combined with an older generation who didn't grow up in a post-war world with all the jobs and opportunities an entire generation could ever need, will actually get to make some progress. Turns out that enjoying a whole load of social security, excellent public services and a balanced economy to get where you are, then tearing it apart and selling it all for personal gain once you're finished with it, while telling younger folks who have to try to make it on their own, they just have to work harder is a bad long-term call. Very soon we will see shortage in the workforce and a need for more caretakers for senior homes. This will be problem number one if you ask me. As someone that works in a nursing home, as a CNA not a nurse, I wouldn't recommend it. Very few people are good at taking care of the elderly because it's hard. It's physically hard to get people in and out of chairs or off toilets all day. It's mentally and emotionally exhausting to know that each day you go to work you aren't really helping someone get better. You're helping them stay alive just so they can eventually die. Not to mention you sit there and watch people slowly die knowing there's literally nothing you can do for them. People who work in nursing homes can become incredibly cynical and I don't blame them one bit. A large part of the residents you take care of either are too far gone to give a shit about what you're doing or just aren't grateful at all. I've been bitten, kicked, punched, spit on, sexually assaulted, etc. And it drains you. The management doesn't care about you and the family members that come usually are pissed that you can't be in 8 places at once, though some of them can be absolutely wonderful. Too long didn't read. Working at a nursing home is hard. You will hate your life. We're running out of honeybees. That's why I'm currently taking beekeeper courses. They are super fun. Looking forward to having my own bees next year. I know it. I could seriously just watch bees all day long. The museum I volunteer at has a honey beehive with plates of glass over the wooden slats that the honeycomb are on. Sorry I don't know the correct word. So you can view the queen and the babies and everything. I love just standing there and watching them for hours on end. I'll never get bored of it. I would totally keep my own hives too if I didn't live in a residential neighborhood. OMG, you have to try a cool trick I recently learned, which only works with the glass where the bees are directly behind working. So basically, while the bees are busy working, touch the tip of your tongue with your finger to make it a little wet. Then you drive the wet finger over the glass to make a squeezing sound. Sorry, also not a native speaker. That sound is used by the bees to tell the other bees to stop working for a few seconds. It's like they are freezing. Then when you stop doing that sound they continue working like nothing happened. Disclaimer: this does not harm the bees, it's just like speaking to them. That all their parents' adolescence and young adulthood is shared, stored and accessible. Schooling, parties, fun time, private time, good, bad, indifferent, whole years, decades, a lifetime stored on the web, for their children, and their friends' enemies, to research. I'm really looking forward to whether Facebook will remain the main social network or not. We'll all soon get on our 10th year on Facebook, and many of my friends are digging out very old posts to laugh at each other. Just imagine in 20 years. Just imagine 100 years. I do my family's history and don't have pictures of most of my great-great-grandparents. In 100 years, there will be great-great-grandmothers who posted to r/gone wild. Instead of calling up county clerks looking for old birth, death, marriage certificates, your descendants will be trolling through the now defunct Reddit trying to find a username. In the US, that baby boomers cannot afford to retire. Don't worry fellow Gen X millennials. It's not just your parents. The most optimistic estimates for the average savings of households headed by a person near retirement age, 55-64, is $100,000, but 40% have nothing saved, so it's skewed. Gen X, having a hard time getting promoted because the senior guys won't get out of the way? Yep, that's not getting better. They can't afford to leave. Millennials, don't sweat it that you still live with your parents. You will soon be returning the favor. Younger generation, whatever you're called, get to work ASAP. We can't afford to send you to college. We're still paying for our student loans and need help funding grandma and grandpa's social security. That machines are going to displace huge parts of the workforce and we haven't set up an adequate economic model to deal with this. The plastics industry will have to change as oil is prioritized for fuel. The return of real class politics as rich-poor divide becomes extreme. Given how much computing is part of everyday life from young age now, I wonder if IT-based jobs like support will get so many well-trained people it'll become next factory-level job. While I think there is some merit to this, I also believe that the younger generation is more displaced from computers too. So much of the technology that exists removes as many steps as possible from the process. Think of a cell phone. You want an app, you download it and it works. That's the entire process. No file system, no settings to configure. I would imagine that most 16-year-old kids do not understand the inner workings of a computer or how to diagnose a memory error. On top of which, think about how long automobiles have been around, and how many people cannot and will not change their own oil, or even check their tire pressure. Just because they are abundant does not automatically mean everyone has an intrinsic understanding of their workings, or even a desire to learn. Running low on phosphorus, running low on helium, running low on fresh water. Yeah, they're going to hate us for using helium in party balloons, given how much it's needed to make a lot of modern technology and run things like MRI machines, unless there's a thing we can use in all of those processes. If we create an economically practical high-temperature superconductor, we can start to use liquid nitrogen. We can probably already make MRIs with such a material, but it is likely still more expensive than the helium counterpart. Evidently something like that doesn't really work due to thermal noise. It's explained very well a bit above this post. What is phosphorus used for? Various fire starters and explosives as well as fertilizer. My kids might not believe me that coral reefs actually existed. Finding Nemo will look like a fantasy in 15 years, because this is getting attention. Let me add a few things. Yes, artificial aids are helping expand existing reefs or grow new ones. But even in ideal conditions, reefs take very long to grow. The Great Barrier Reef is 18 million years old and the current reef is over 8,000 years old. Here is the wiki on ocean acidification, which is a very real problem to reefs, shellfish and all ecosystems of the planet. Read The Sixth Extinction by Elizabeth Colbert for more information about the very real damage to biodiversity human influence is ravaging. If coral reefs disappear, the ocean will not be able to absorb half as much CO2 and the greenhouse effect will increase dramatically. Global warming is real, and the people in charge have been doing their best to totally ignore it. We are running out of wild elephants and rhinos. The slow and unstoppable loss of our privacy began before they were even born. People with money make the rules, and are also exempt from the rules. Amazed I've gone quite far and not seen the aging population. Essentially this the forthcoming perfect storm of an increasingly healthy, long-living population. As people live longer, the proportion of the world's population not working will increase significantly and disproportionately, and a great number of those older people will be disabled or infirm, requiring significant care. Rains are coming. Not to mention, we tend to value quantity over quality when it comes to living. So as this huge population starts dying, we will spend unfathomable amounts of money on expensive medical interventions just to extend their suffering by a few more months. That the older generation quickly reaches a point in power where they are a liability to the rest of the world. The millennials are going to have a field day when Gen X starts to retire. We were never big enough to put a dent in the voting bloc that is the boomers. When we get old and crotchety, we won't have the numbers to stop the younger generations from changing everything or from standing on our lawn. Having a lot of different antibiotics to choose from was really awesome. Sorry we used them all up by giving them to kids with viral infections and handing them out like candy in many countries. Remember to wear your Purell brand clothing at all times. If we're complaining about how hard it is to find work now, imagine how hard it's gonna be in the next 20, 30 years with machines replacing people. Google has a car which can drive itself. Damn it. Democracy requires belief for it to be successful, and our generation's cynicism about the process means that our children will be truly lost. How can democracy ever exist in the long term without a strength of conviction behind it? Actually, in practice it's more like 2 wolves and 8 lambs voting on what to have for dinner, where 2 lambs vote for grass, 2 vote for clover, 3 don't vote because they don't think it'll change anything, and 1 votes for lamb along with the wolves because the wolves told them foreign lambs would come over and eat their food if they didn't. That there are a lot of children out there who have grown up only knowing America is the place that sends death from the sky. Watching American foreign policy over the next 50 years, given how badly they've ducked up over the past 15, is going to be interesting. There may not be enough drinking water and water for irrigation of crops, especially in places like California. Oh, there is plenty. Source: I live in Michigan and am surrounded by fresh water. The amount of fresh water in the world is ridiculous. There is far more than enough for everyone and it gets replenished often. The issue is getting it from Michigan to California or Africa or India. If someone can figure out how to transport water efficiently and cheap, then they will make millions. Acidification of the oceans. We are in for one hell of a rude awakening when the phytoplankton dies. There won't be any jobs on a dead planet. Unemployment on a huge scale. With the rise of driverless automobiles, the transport and taxi industries will cease to employ even 10% of what they do today, leaving millions of fewer jobs. The rise of 3D printing will mean a lot of household objects can be made at home from raw materials, making factories for basic objects obsolete and making millions of jobs redundant. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.